Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Employer Accelerator. We're glad that you're here. My name is Mark McManus, and I serve as the Apprenticeship Expansion Coordinator in the Office of Skills Development, which is part of the Arkansas Department of Commerce. And I'm going to kind of be leading us through our meeting agenda today. We've got a packed agenda, a lot of good information. I hope everyone can take advantage of listening in and hopefully learning. I want to encourage you to be active in the use of the chat feature. We're going to be monitoring that throughout the meeting. And we are recording our session today because we want to be sure that we're capturing all of the good information that's being shared. And also just to know that if by chance we're not able to get to all the questions, at the end, we're allowing time to do some Q&A, but we'll have those questions captured and be able to respond to individuals when we're able to do that. But hopefully we're going to get it all packed in our meeting time today. You know, for those of you who may be our attendees, if you would please kind of keep your microphone muted. We'd appreciate that. We want to be sure that our speakers and panelists have an opportunity to share you know, their presentations and information with you today clearly and concisely. I just want to do a quick rundown of our agenda today so you kind of have a flavor for what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be hearing some welcomes from our host agencies today, just a few brief comments, and then we're going to move right into our national perspective with invited guests that we have around the Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Sprint that's being launched by the Department of Labor in coordination with the White House, and hear information about that, the goals that have been established, and information about utilizing apprenticeship as part of that model. Then we're going to have just a brief overview of registered apprenticeship and also hear from our industry intermediary in information technology for the state of Arkansas, the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. They'll be sharing information with you about their role and the opportunity that they present to promote apprenticeship in our state. We're also going to have an esteemed group of panelists, employers that are utilizing registered apprenticeship in IT and cybersecurity. And I think that's going to be very advantageous for all of us to hear and learn about what they are doing within their respective organizations. And then we'll close out with a Q&A and kind of talking about some next steps. So that's really a quick run through of our agenda. I want to kind of kick us off today with an opening video and message from the governor. And if we could kind of get that queued up and play that for everyone on our call.
Hi, I'm Governor Asa Hutchinson. Arkansas has a national reputation for supporting and promoting technological innovation in education and in our workforce. One of my long-standing goals has been to establish Arkansas as a micro-hub for high-tech industries. As you may know, we were the first state to require schools to offer computer science courses, leading to increased student computer and coding skills. This foundation has allowed us to create opportunities for workers, help meet the needs of employers, and add to our state's economic vitality. Advances in technology have also allowed cybercrime to grow exponentially. In 2019, I created the Arkansas Computer Science and Cybersecurity Task Force to identify our vulnerabilities and provide guidance for continued growth. In addition to our leadership, we have invested heavily in IT and cybersecurity. Let me describe some of the steps we have taken. In 2018, my Blue Ribbon Commission formed the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences to address the IT and cyber talent gap. This statewide intermediary sponsor for registered apprenticeships has already worked with nearly 100 employers and registered over 400 apprentices. The Arkansas Future Grant provides 2 years of tuition and fees to students of Arkansas community or technical colleges enrolled in a high-demand field of study, like computer science, IT, and cybersecurity. Finally, as part of my WINS initiative, the Office of Skills Development invested $3.6 million to support the development of the state's cyber workforce. Today in Arkansas, there are over 4,000 cybersecurity jobs that remain unfilled. The apprenticeship model has long been a standard in training and preparation for the construction trades and is now being proven as both an effective and efficient means of training the next generation of cybersecurity. Through the Arkansas Office of Skills Development, educators, industry intermediaries, and businesses have access to a pipeline of skilled cyber experts. This is why the next 90 minutes are so important. This is a unique opportunity to hear from those who have implemented tech apprenticeships in their organizations, ask questions, and make contacts with leaders who can help you grow your tech program successfully and efficiently. Thank you for all you do to make Arkansas the greatest place to live and work.
We certainly appreciate those comments from Governor Hutchinson and his leadership with information technology education in our state. He's been a champion for all of that work, and we're very appreciative. Next, I'd like to introduce our host organizations, and it includes the Office of Skills Development, and Cody Waits is the Director of the Office of Skills Development. We also have Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. Mr. Bill Yoder serves as the Executive Director, and then also the Forge Institute with Scott Anderson serving as the Executive Director. And Cody, if you wouldn't mind just leading us off with some welcoming comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, and happy to be with everyone today. And I think it's important to kind of note where we've come from and why we're here today. And as part of this 120-day Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Sprint, not too long ago, the Secretary of Labor, Marty Walsh, and Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, announced the 120-day Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Sprint in an effort to support numerous industries in the use of registered apprenticeship to develop and train a skilled and diverse cybersecurity workforce. The 120-day Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Sprint is obviously geared towards increasing the awareness of current and successful cybersecurity-related apprenticeship programs, while also attempting to recruit and create interest and awareness among others who will look to satisfy the workforce development, recruitment, and retention efforts as companies continue to figure out what that looks like as we continue to move forward and try to find that next pipeline of talent in the cybersecurity world. As you all know and may learn today, right, apprenticeship is kind of a high-quality, earn-as-you-learn driven program. And if you look back historically here in the state of Arkansas, it wasn't really something that was focused outside of the construction industry space or expanded into other diverse sectors and populations until around 2015-16 when Governor Hutchinson came into office and really started putting a focus on what we could do in terms of expanding workforce development as part of the jobs that were being created and being driven to the state of Arkansas. Since 2015, we've seen a 125% increase in registered apprenticeship here in the state of Arkansas, which I think if you look around the country, that is probably one of the highest rate of increases that you will see anywhere in the country. And so we're very proud of the work that's been done through both state, federal funding opportunities that have been made available, and through the collaborative efforts of the Office of Skills Development, the Division of Workforce Services, the Office of Apprenticeship at the federal level, and all of our partners around the state. Those are who you're going to hear from here shortly today. But I think it's important to note that that's where we've been, and now where are we going? Currently we have around 7,900 active apprentices here in the state of Arkansas. up from around 3,600 back in 2015. That increase is obviously driven by the economics here in the state and as well as nationally, but it's also driven because of the expansion efforts that have taken place with information technology driven by the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. 400 IT apprentices in just a couple of years is nothing to bat an eye at. And as a matter of fact, I'm here sitting in Virginia right now at a National Association of State Apprenticeship Directors meeting. And as we're having this conversation, they're downstairs talking about certain things. And I mentioned to a handful of them last night what we were planning on doing today with our partners around this cybersecurity sprint. And most of them were very much interested and engaged and thrilled that we were doing something like this, because a lot of their other states are not doing that either. And so, with that, we have a really great opportunity to be leaders in this space. We see ourselves as leaders in the IT apprenticeship world already. We're only going to continue that effort, but I think we have a really great opportunity to expand in the cybersecurity field. And the group that you're going to hear from today, the employers who are taking advantage of it now and are having success with it, as well as those of you who are sitting out there wondering how we're going to continue to grow and how we're going to continue to find talent in this world that we're in today. I think registered apprenticeship is obviously, it's a workforce development tool, but it's a way to develop your workforce. And I'm really appreciative of all the time and effort that everyone's put into establishing this group today and the conversation that's going to take place. Thank you to the governor for taking the time to put together that speech and promoting this effort as part of his WINS initiative, with W standing for workforce. We're very thrilled to have you all today and look forward to the conversation that's going to ensue. So thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate your comments. Bill Yoder, let's hear from you, sir.
Well, thanks, Mark. Good morning, everybody. On behalf of the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, ACDS, thank everybody for their participation in making this accelerator happen. Very briefly, our challenge and mission is to work with the Arkansas employers and identify those looking for IT skills. And then we help find qualified Arkansans to help fill those roles. We support all of the traditional pathways to an IT career, but we also sponsor registered apprenticeship programs as a supplemental strategy. 3 years ago in Arkansas, there was a whisper about IT apprenticeship programs. Today, I think you'll hear that it has found its voice. We hope that you leave with undisputable evidence that it works. It's a staffing strategy. Thank you, everybody. Mark.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Scott Anderson.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. I'm Scott Anderson, Executive Director at Forge. I feel like I'm part of this ecosystem in Arkansas, forging, no pun intended, in regards to partnerships that are going to, create this opportunity. Like you've heard already from a few of the folks, is Arkansas setting some best practices. So if you don't know my background, I served Air Force 24 years. I was an apprentice in the Air Force, right? That model is a proven model, or the DoD wouldn't be doing it. I was an apprentice after I went through some initial school. Then I became a journeyman, a craftsman, a master. In cybersecurity, I think a lot of organizations just want to hire masters, or they want to hire craftsmen. Well, we got to invest in the pipeline. The pipeline is a proven model with apprenticeships. And I think I had the luxury of going to a leadership conference not long ago. There was a speaker there, Johnny Taylor. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's the president CEO of SHRM. He talked about empathy. He's got a great book out called Reset. And the Reset book talks about, leader's guide to working in an age of upheaval. So I think since COVID, a lot of things have happened. I had to look up upheaval, right? So definition: strong, violent change or disruption. I would say from a national security standpoint, from a society that we live in today, I would say that there's never been a greater divide. And I think we need to look at opportunities where we can find common good. And when you develop that common good, is not just for individuals, it's for organizations. And you have to develop people to fill the needs of organizations. I feel like there's a collective responsibility around professionals in the cyber. And when I use the word cyber, there's a fire hose coming at us with new technologies, with new capabilities, using tech. It impacts every organization. Every organization, public, private, is a technology organization. How much work can you get done without email? or this day and age without Zoom like we're on right now. So we need to develop people, and Forge has some great training programs. Those have been leveraged for apprenticeship models. I think we're going to talk a little bit about those later with Lonnie, but I would say that I'm just so glad that we're able to partner. Forge is a small nonprofit. I still feel like I'm serving not just my nation, which I am, because I'm developing our future cyber professionals, but also my state, my community. And I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad everybody made it here today, and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate your comments and certainly appreciate the partnership with Forge. Next up, I'd like to introduce Manny Lamar and Marion Merritt. They are going to be sharing some more information with us today around sort of the national perspective and the cybersecurity sprint that's in play. It's been, I think, the official announcement happened back in maybe mid-July or a little bit later than that. So Manny Lamar serves as the Senior Advisor for Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration. And I've heard Manny on a variety of webinars. He has a lot of good information to share. And Marion Merritt is the Deputy Director for the National Institute of Cybersecurity Education. So we're pleased to have both of them with us today. And Manny and Marion, I will just hand it off to you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark. A pleasure to be here. A pleasure to join you all. I would say go Razorbacks, but I'm from Miami, but I know you all are starting 2-0, so I don't want to start anything on this webinar. However, appreciate, I will be joining with my colleague Marion, and we'll be tag teaming to speak a little bit about the, the apprenticeship ecosystem landscape and the broader, specifically around the cyber sprint. So we'll kind of tag team back and forth, and Marion will share some really great information on CyberSeek and some tools, and we'll share a bit as well. So I'll start really quickly and actually just turn it over to Marion to speak a bit on some of the broader landscape on some of the data, and then I'll switch over. So we could probably go to the next slide.
Awesome. So hi, everybody, Marion Merritt, and I'm the Deputy Director with NICE, as you heard from the Department of Commerce, which is NICE is part of NIST, which many of you are probably very familiar with. So let's set the stage with why we are focusing our attention on registered apprenticeships for the cybersecurity sector. And we can refer to data that we see here from the website CyberSeek, cyberseek.org. And this is a site that NICE, my organization, funds, which is a collaboration from Lightcast, which is an economic data analytics firm, in conjunction with CompTIA, which you all know as an IT certification and training company. So they maintain statistical data on the job openings across the entire US for cybersecurity roles, and they provide really great detailed data broken down by state, by census metro area, by sector, and they give us this information on types of jobs, on what employers are looking for by qualifications, by job titles, etc. It's really detailed. And in the last 12 months, when they updated this in June, around the time of our annual conference, we saw that it had grown by an astounding 43% to over, as you see here, 700,000 open positions across the United States, with 4,100 positions open here in Arkansas. Now, that is in comparison to 18% growth across the total job market in the United States in that same time period. So what is happening? Despite all of our concerted efforts to grow hiring in cybersecurity, demand is growing, and that is because of the ongoing threats affecting us all. That is also due to industries that previously weren't necessarily hiring, kind of waking up and realizing that they need to hire as well. They might have been outsourcing, and now they're bringing those capabilities in-house, or they're increasing their staff. So there's just a boom in demand, and that's putting pressure on all of us who need talent. So just know that the CyberSeek data gets updated several times a year. It's not live data, but it's really great resource for all of us who want to understand why it's so hard to find talent. So let's look at the next slide if we can. So we in general find, can just click over to the next slide, please. Mark, great. So some of the reasons that we're just so excited about registered apprenticeship as one of the tools for all of us to look at as a great resource. So we're all experiencing this terrible shortage of talent, but we also see it dramatically at the entry level. When you look at CyberSeek data, and when you look, just go look at Indeed, go look at LinkedIn, everyone is trying to hire that mid-career cyber professional. You look at job ads, they say 5 to 10 years of experience. And for those of you who are in the education and training market, you know, your students, your learners are frustrated by that, right? So that's really frustrating. So the solution, the opportunity here is to encourage our employers to really focus on developing their pipeline and increase their entry-level talent opportunities. We also, when we look at the demographics in the cybersecurity sector across the board, it's predominantly male, it's predominantly Caucasian. We see huge opportunities here to increase diversity. And this is really about increasing opportunities for all. With 700,000 open positions, this just means ensuring that everybody who wants to get a job in this sector has an opportunity to do so. And this means we're seeking opportunities for veterans, for women who are returning to the workforce after they've been home with their kids, for people who perhaps are in rural communities and are looking for remote opportunities. We're looking for diverse talent, and this is very exciting. We're also thinking about cybersecurity, which is a field where there's traditionally been a lot of turnover because, again, employers have been looking at that mid-career talent, and so there's been a lot of active recruiting activity, poaching of talent, which has been an issue. Now, if we also, I'm sorry, was there a question? I'll continue. On that second bullet point, there's also new in-demand skill areas. Cybersecurity changes daily, right? So we need our people to keep acquiring new skills, but sometimes those skills are just not kind of off the shelf, ready to go. Registered apprenticeship can be a great strategy for upskilling existing talent or for focusing training programs on those particularly difficult to fill talent areas. So that can be something for employers to consider if you're trying to develop or find people with really hard to find skill areas, let's say cloud security, data analytics, consider setting up a program and developing that talent yourself. And then contrary to myth, when you train people, they don't leave. There is really great retention numbers around registered apprenticeship. And if you're thinking about the people that you want to keep locally, you invest in those people, they tend to stay. So when compared to high recruiting costs that may not be kept, registered apprenticeship can be a great way of not only investing in your people, but giving them the skills and keeping them locally. So again, registered apprenticeship is just one of those tools in developing a pipeline of talent that can address a number of problems related to the cybersecurity workforce. All right, next slide, and over to you, Manny.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Marian. And I think you did a really great job setting the stage around connecting to the demand side. And I'll add a little bit here on the Cyber Sprint and more broadly around the department's focus on apprenticeships and how we can leverage apprenticeship for that supply side. And I know Cody also touched up a little bit earlier too around like some of the key pieces in terms of registered apprenticeships. But some interesting statistics, right? 93% of apprentices actually stay on with their employers. So when we talk about employers and when we talk about retention, and we know that on the industry side, there's that ROI, like there's looking at the retention, that's a huge value add. And we see $1.47 for every $1 invested in apprenticeships. So when you kind of put that together to think about how are we going to align with the supply side, that really has been driven around the department's focus around registered apprenticeships. And particularly, we've made some recent significant investments the past couple of years to really continue to scale and expand registered apprenticeships. For example, we've invested over nearly $300 million in apprenticeships, the past couple of years, 121 million in our Apprenticeship Building America funds, grants. And that's really, again, to help modernize, diversify, and expand registered apprenticeships. We know it's worked already in other industries, and we've seen it work in a variety of industries. And in the cybersecurity space, as we all know, every sector is a cyber sector at this point, right? No sector can survive without kind of a strong backbone within cybersecurity. And so we've also invested in intermediaries. And our intermediaries, and this is why I'm, really pleased to hear earlier from Mark, Lonnie, Cody, and some of the work that's going on in Arkansas, because really thinking strategically around how can industry really kind of accelerate. And a key piece of that is leveraging that technical assistance and providing the opportunity to really build your own workforce, as opposed to kind of, borrowing your workforce. An apprenticeship really does that in terms of building your workforce. So with that said, we've launched the 120-day Cyber Sprint. It was launched on July 19th. It really started as part of our 85th anniversary, but it also builds on our trucking challenge that some of you may have heard about late last year and early this year, where we're really working to, around the supply chain, how we thinking strategically around the supply chain challenges. But really, quite frankly, it was a way to show that a government with business, when we're working together, we can do it and we can expand. So for example, we've had apprenticeship programs doing the trucking challenge launch within 48 hours. So that's really wanting to show that we can move at the speed of business to really provide that support. So that's where the investment also complements is as well. On the next slide, I'll jump to the next slide. And here is just our Cyber Sprint goals. And again, I've mentioned our industry intermediaries, our investment with the Apprenticeship Building America. We've also had other investments as well that I'll speak to a bit. But really, when we're thinking about registered apprenticeship, the Cyber Sprint, we have some clear goals around it. And really the goals is 1, increase awareness and successful opportunities within Cyber Sprint. And actually, I think it's one slide before this. Increase awareness. 2 is advancing DEIA. And the reason when we think about DEIA, that's diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, it's really a way to build your pipeline, right? That sustainable pipeline so that individuals and workers, we know that when you develop a workforce within the community, they're more likely to stay. And so that's really a key piece. And that's include rural communities, veterans, people of color, women. And that's really thinking about like that strategic piece. Another few things I'll mention is really at the end of the day, we want to engage public and private partners around models and the different models of apprenticeship. And we were really pleased with our partnership with Commerce in terms of, working closely together around thinking strategically around some of the curriculum and supporting employers to really kind of build on in terms of the NICE framework. And then finally, it's really getting employers to launch programs. So if I had to put it succinctly, 1, increase awareness. 2, create opportunities to launch new apprenticeship program connect to existing programs. And then 3, of course, aligning all of that effort to ensure that it's, we're inclusive and including a variety of populations. That's also aligned with some of our investment, whether it's our WANTO grants, is an acronym for women in apprenticeships. So our Women's Bureau, they've invested into supporting registered apprenticeship as part of the WANTO grants as well. We've also, leveraged a variety of other investments to really continue to build out our registered apprenticeship ecosystem. Since the Cyber Sprint goes, I think we're nearly at 3-4 dozen, roughly around 60, 70 companies, organizations, I should say, that's either launched a new program, attached to an existing program, or developing standards. And we're hopefully that we could continue on this path and really, towards the end of the second week of November when the Cyber Sprint ends. But I will flag, like, even though the Cyber Sprint ends in November, we will still continue to provide organization support around cybersecurity, because this is not a short-term challenge. This is really a long-term challenge that we're going to continue to invest in. The next slide. I just want to quickly share some resources before I turn it back over to you, Marian. And really, as we launch a cybersecurity sprint, we know that, we can develop tools and resources to ensure that states, industry can really kind of take it and run with it. And so if you go on apprenticeship.gov, we do want to highlight some of our resources. And so, for example, we have a partner finder. That's where you can go and identify partners within your region, the community. So within Arkansas and other places nationally that are doing similar work. so that you can make those connection points and really scale those programs. We also have where you can express your interest form, where we would follow up with you and make sure that we're connected. And then we have a ton of other opportunities that is on the Cybersecurity Sprint resource page. And I really, really encourage you all to visit those resource page, and of course, follow up via Cybersecurity Apprenticeship at DOL.gov for any questions that you may have. I'll turn it over back to you, Marianne. Thank you again.
Great job, Manny. Thank you so much. Look, and this has been an amazing project that demonstrates collaboration between the Departments of Labor and the Departments of Commerce. So just speaking for the Department of Commerce and NICE, another asset you'll find on the Sprint page just a little bit lower down is a link to the Cybersecurity Apprenticeship Program Finder, which is very simply a clickable map that shows apprenticeship programs around the country that have openings for people. So, you know, people who are looking for a program to join can click and get linked to, you know, open up an email and get more information. And new programs that have been created during the Sprint will appear in red. We also have a link on that page to the NICE-sponsored Apprenticeship Community of Interest. And that is a group that meets monthly, and it is open as a forum for anyone who is interested in sharing and learning about how apprenticeships work for cybersecurity-related occupations. And I would encourage any of you on this webinar today to visit our website at nist.gov/NICE. You can learn more about the group, and it is run by members of the public, and I am the liaison to it. You see my email on the screen here. You can send me an email if you want more information, how that group works, or the NICE community in general. So on behalf of myself and Manny, the Department of Labor, the Department of Commerce, thank you so much for having us here today.
Well, thank you so much, Marion and Manny. We appreciate your willingness to participate in our meeting today and the partnership that you have with us going forward. A lot of good information shared, and Manny had mentioned the 120-day sprint and a lot of discussion around that. But as we know, in Arkansas, we're focused on that with what we're doing here in the webinar today, but also it's an ongoing effort that we're going to be involved with for a long period of time, working with all our collaborative partners. So thank you once again, Manny and Marion. Next, just kind of want to move to a little bit of a registered apprenticeship overview, and just some brief comments from me, sort of giving some foundational information about registered apprenticeship. And then I want to turn it over to Lonnie Emmert, and Lonnie serves as the apprenticeship director for the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. And Lonnie's going to be sharing information around what ACDS offers in terms of support for industry and IT related apprenticeships. And then we'll move to our panelist segment. So real quickly, many of you are probably familiar with registered apprenticeship, but you know, it's a time-tested work-based learning model that just works. You know, we've seen that historically with a lot of the construction trades occupations. We are seeing it more and more across the nation, across many occupation and industry sectors. Certainly IT is one that is growing day by day in our state for sure. You know, really the registered apprenticeship model offers, you know, related technical instruction or classroom training in combination with on-the-job training and mentoring. And those two components work together nicely for an apprentice to be trained up in the skills that are needed by a given employer for the occupation and career pathway that is needed in that given organization. The slide that you see is really the 5 basic components that we have in registered apprenticeship. And if you kind of go clockwise there, with starting with number 1 in business involvement, that's really where it starts. Our employers sit at the head of the table. They're driving all of the action with establishing a registered apprenticeship program. They understand in their organizations what is needed in terms of workforce development, able to sort of coordinate that activity, working with, in our state, in our office, and ACDS for IT-related apprenticeships, to be able to develop programs and get those launched and approved as registered apprenticeship programs. So it starts with the employer. The next two, the on-the-job training, mentoring piece, it's very important for organizations to have good experienced mentors to be serving in the capacity to offer that on-the-job training that works so nicely in combination with what's being learned in the classroom and the concepts that are explored. That on-the-job mentoring piece is vital and serves a much needed purpose with the Registered Apprenticeship Program. Classroom training, you're learning the concepts. Classroom training can be delivered certainly virtually now with all the things that we're experimenting with in terms of how that can happen, as well as on-site training, working with a variety of training partners, either community colleges, third-party vendors potentially, and others that are offering the needed support and classroom training that meets the employer's needs. With the registered apprenticeship, there's progressive wage increases. There needs to be at least one in a year for a registered apprentice. There can be more certainly, but at a minimum, that's what is expected with a DOL registered apprenticeship approved program. And then there's at the end and successful completion of registered apprenticeship, you're awarded a national credential from the U.S. Department of Labor that's portable. It means what it significance in Arkansas, as well as you can take it anywhere else. And it is recognized as being a successful credential and completer for that given occupation across the nation. Again, registered apprenticeship time-tested model. Our state supports it. We're working with employers every day to see if there's an opportunity where it makes sense, and we want to support those efforts along the way. So we continue to support those efforts. With that, Lonnie, I'll turn it over to you with what you'd like to share with the ACDS model.
Well, thank you, Mark, and thanks to Marion and Manny as well. I feel like we're the 3M in Arkansas, right? Manny, Marion, and Mark. But anyway, I'm going to kind of bridge off of what has been mentioned by the governor and Bill Yoder. ACDS is a nonprofit organization that has been established as the statewide intermediary for registered apprenticeships in IT and cyber. Next slide. You heard this notion that we're addressing this extreme talent gap. And what we have already demonstrated, and we want each of you as an employer or as a training provider or as a potential candidate to understand, is that we have established an ecosystem in Arkansas to be able to address this using the apprenticeship as a solution. So instead of this looking like increasingly high demand for skills and competencies in cyber and IT, and looking at a pool that's very small and so forth, we have now expanded this supply to a huge, and I do mean that, a very large, diverse, non-traditional pool of candidates. And by using the apprenticeship model, as Mark, you mentioned in the apprenticeship, the combination of existing skill building, education through training providers, and what we call related technical instruction in combination with OJT, which is, putting them with a mentor and making sure that all companies, I know every one of you out there are thinking about how you onboard people, whether they're a new hire with a degree or an experienced hire, they're still having to learn your way, and you're still training them on skills. And so what we have done is put this at the intersection of what we call capability and opportunity. You as the employer have demand. We have this pool of candidate that is increasing the capacity across the state of Arkansas, and we're using the apprenticeship model to successfully deliver on that result. Next slide. So one of the things I want to just set the stage for, cybersecurity, you see it right there in the middle of these occupations, but there's so many other in periphery in IT that really are related. Cyber is a broad term, as Scott mentioned, that really covers technology and the demand for skills. And so we want you to know we already have registered apprenticeship standards for each of these particular occupations. There's new ones that we're about to grow. I think 3 more we're about to start. So go ahead and next slide. I'm trying to move through this quickly because the premier part of this is I want to get to our panel who have been able to successfully implement registered apprenticeship programs in the state of Arkansas. But here is a key. If you're taking notes, I don't want you to miss this. When Cody referred to other states who look at Arkansas and say, what are you doing that's so different? I feel very blessed when I came here from South Carolina to get the opportunity to work with Bill and the OSD and all the other partners to put an end-to-end system together, which really does say that we focus on employers and client management to the point of today's effort. If you get interested today, that you learn enough about apprenticeship as an employer to want to take the next step, just know that we have a process of going from awareness to interest to commitment. So please note that that's one of your calls to action before we're done today. But we do engage clients, not because we're trying to sell you some flavor of the month program. That is not it. We're trying to understand your demand. What's your need? What can't you fill in terms of an IT or a cyber related position, information security or cybersecurity specialist, or whatever that role might be, as well as all the other things I just showed you. So on one hand, we're really spending time as an organization focused on demand. We have a client management leader. On the other side, sourcing talent, this is probably the most important thing we can tell you today, is that there's over 10,000 folks in our applicant tracking system that mirror what Marion and Manny just talked about. They're veterans returning from the military. They're females, they're underserved populations, rural, career changers, non-college goers, it's everybody. And our talent management process has been working them through zero to ready, to be able to put them in front of employers, to be able to join an apprenticeship program and become a new hire at your company, adding to the capacity that we need in the state and adding to fill this grow your own mentality that when you say, I think we can make this work, we say, we know you can. And the other piece that we add, besides having 5 seasoned recruiters that are going to help you screen candidates and be able to take your needs and not only have you continue to look at your own postings and find candidates, but we can supplement that with our process. And then the middle piece is really adding a project management layer where we, as the sponsor for the Department of Labor, will handle all of your paperwork and all of the things that funding related. You're going to see a financial side to this equation that should be very attractive to you. We do the project management over the course of your implementation, so you don't have to find another resource to do that. We also have training management, which works with all of our vendors to find the best in class, training program that's going to map to your standard. The example for cybersecurity, and you've heard from Scott, we've got the Forge Institute who runs the cyber boot camp that becomes the related technical instruction for a cybersecurity apprenticeship program. So those are the examples. We've got an end-to-end system. The state has invested in resources. We've invested in the systems and processes to make this easy and to eliminate any barrier to entry for you as an employer. Next slide. So in summary, what I'm saying is there is a benefit and cost savings to you as an employer for every apprentice. Maybe between $5,000 and $10,000 per apprentice if you use the no-cost services of talent acquisition support. You look at our technical assistance that we provide around apprenticeship, the project management that we offer at no cost, and then the apprenticeship training RTI cost, which for the most part, every employer in the state, and you'll see our numbers, have been able to implement their apprenticeship and get the cost of their training covered through either through a combination of federal money that we've won a grant with the Department of Labor called Closing the Skills Gap, or state money from the Office of Skills Development. You've heard Cody step up and say this is a key part of what they're here for, is to support that apprenticeship and that training and professional development. And then the third thing is we have some private monies that we can apply to this as well because of our nonprofit status. Average RTI costs around $2,500 per apprentice, and that's nice to know that that doesn't have to come out of your budget. And this does apply not just to new hires, but it can apply to your existing incumbent professionals who are advancing their career, and they can do that via the apprenticeship. And we've got plenty of examples we'll talk about when we're doing our employer panel. The final piece to this, don't miss that there is an Arkansas state tax credit, $2,000 per apprentice. That may not be that important to large companies, but small and medium companies really have seen that as a big advantage for them. Next slide. So to round this out, and I know I've gone through this very quickly, I hope you have taken notes, but this is kind of the model of what we've done so far and what we're trying to build from during this cybersecurity 120-day sprint. We're not starting from ground zero, but we sure would like to double the momentum, if you will, by having so many employers on this call today. We hope to do that. We've spoken with about 230 in the last 3 years, but 102 are committed so far to apprenticeships. We've done over, as you can see, 428 registered apprenticeships in Rapids to date. We had planned 400 in 2022. I think the number is 117 for the last quarter of the year. We'd like to double that because of this focus during the cybersecurity sprint. And so I won't go through all of this slide with you. It's busy, but just know that client development and client management has people working on it. Talent development has seasoned recruiters. Training management has a focused director to work with you. You can customize that training to make sure that it meets the standard, but it also is flexible to make sure it's exactly what you need people to know to be productive in your organization. Very important. We provide project management and all the reporting and sustainability. So with that, I guess we're going to lead into our panel. And I've tried to hurry through my piece. I hope you've taken notes and already built some questions. And I'm hoping that we answer those questions in the midst of our panel, because we have a very distinguished group. And so I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity right now to let each of them, I'll mention their names and let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their background and their company and really why they're here to talk about apprenticeship. So with that, I'm going to start with Mr. Jim Cole, CIO at Arvest Bank. Jim, go ahead. You're on mute, Jim. Still on mute. Jim, why don't you wait? I'm going to go ahead and move on to a second panelist, and we'll be able to come back and get you set up. So we have Brent Parmenter from Walmart. And Brent, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll get Jim's microphone taken care of.
Sounds good. Thanks, Lonnie. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So as he said, I'm Brent Parmenter. I am the Senior Director for Non-Traditional Talent, and I also lead our Walmart Military and Veterans Affairs work across the enterprise. I spent about 20 years in the military before getting out about 8 years ago. Lived in Northern California, realized that wasn't my long-term home the minute I got there, and wanted to expand out after that, but did for about 6 years in the workforce in manufacturing, electronics manufacturing space. Came here to Arkansas about 3 years and have found a long-term home and doing some great work with the partners here at ACDS and across the state. Our connection to apprenticeships for me personally was just having worked on this, like I said, in the electronics manufacturing sector and across the country in states like West Virginia, Ohio, California, Alabama, and South Carolina.
Very good. Thanks for that intro. Jim, I think you're good now. You want to go ahead? Well, I'm wrong. I guess we're going to have to fix that problem. Next, I'm going to go ahead and turn to Mr. Jonathan Askins, who is the Director and CIO at the Department of Information Systems within the state government. So Jonathan, go ahead.
Thanks, Lonnie. I think I'm the only panelist that Bill Yoder has actually hired. So he may or may not want to take credit for that, but he did hire me years back. So I have a little bit of private sector experience here in Arkansas with ranging from Altel to Axiom to SAS. And then just over 18 months ago, I took this position. When I interviewed with the governor, he basically said, we've got 8 years of issues. You've got 18 months. I said, okay. So we have to get things moving quickly. And that's why we looked at the apprentice program, because it can help us to jumpstart some things. Whereas if we went through our normal process, I think it would take too long. So I was very pleased to hear about your program.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Jim, I've just sent you a note saying it should have a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that should allow you to take mute off. Unfortunately, that's not seeming to be working. Well, I'm not sure how to address that. Mark, your technical team can maybe work with Jim separately on that. Anyway, we need to keep moving on. And I was excited to hear Jim set the stage for this. By the way, meeting folks, we're going to have a couple other folks that are on this call that are going to be testimonials a little bit later, and they don't have an opportunity to be able to turn their microphone on. And so that is two people, Foster Davis and Sarah Polton. So if you can look at that and see if you can get them set up for later. So right now I'm going to go ahead and proceed with our kind of initial Q&A with a note to the audience. This is really, really important. As you develop questions, put them in the chat and we'll be able to respond to that. I think we've already got some questions coming in, so those are going to be accumulated and we'll address those as soon as we get done with our panelist session here. So let me start with the first question. We've kind of heard a little bit from each of you about this. And I'm going to start with Brent and kind of describe kind of what has led to this effort at Walmart. I know that Bill and I had a chance to meet with you and some of your leadership early on through the Northwest Arkansas Council. Tell us kind of what process you've gone through to make the decision to do this.
Yeah, it's actually an interesting journey, and I imagine some that a lot of companies are going through, not just here in Arkansas, but across the country, where, you know, I started out with just one role, which was the Military and Veterans Affairs role, quickly brought on the STEM role as well for Walmart, and then that evolved into what we call non-traditional talent. And about a year ago, we started looking at the reasons why we set up a military and veterans program on the talent side and STEM and whatnot, and it had to do with conditions in the 2010 to 15 timeframe, where you had things like high veteran unemployment, you had these other supply side circumstances, and those reasons had changed over time. For instance, veteran unemployment is at 1.9% right now. It's not as high as it was, and so we started to look more at the demand side at ourselves, at our company and our practices, and what we were not doing as much as what we were doing, and realized Walmart is very good at consuming talent. We can try to find people that are already skilled and consume them as employees, bring them in and give them a great set of opportunities. But what we really needed to do was tap into and expand the size of the supply market, because it was almost shrinking and it wasn't as readily available as it had been in the past. And so we look to other populations, and that's where we come to non-traditional, as many have been mentioned here, where it doesn't just include veterans, it includes first generation or return to work populations or others. And we thought in order to actually engage those populations, we also needed to change the way we do things. And instead of just consuming talent, we needed to also help create that talent. And the apprenticeship approach was a perfect way to do that. It really set us up for success in terms of how we could do so at a cost and speed to market and quality levels that were advantageous from a business side. There's lots of business roles where this was needed in cyber and other areas. And we're starting to see the focus and attention and desire to bring apprenticeships into our enterprise for the first time in 60 years really scale out, and we're excited for it. But that's how we got into this, and the conversations with you. We're using the partnerships with here in Arkansas to also show the rest of the country what right looks like in terms of how to do this with us.
One thing that I wanted to do a quick follow-up on that before we get to another set of questions for you, Brent, is that, you know, in the midst of this, you talked about a large company, Walmart, and all the things that you felt like needed to align with this, right? So this decision wasn't just, oh, hey, that sounds great, let's go ahead and get started, right? There were a lot of things that you talked about, talent architecture teams and making sure the line managers, hiring managers understood things, that you knew about the mentoring process that we talk about. And so just explain that a little bit as to how you kind of did that behind the scenes.
Yeah, we realized that in a large company, much like coming from the Department of Defense or some other large organization like Department of Commerce or whatnot in the government, and using those interagency processes, Walmart operates a lot like that. You have a large enterprise, 2.5 million people globally. And so you can't build the perfect solution for the whole enterprise in one step. We had to do a series of sequential steps, and we acted like almost a small company in that regard, where we identified one business segment and helped to understand what their needs were. And we made sense of this in terms of the apprenticeship concept of related training instruction, on the job training, how we work with you all as an intermediary, the financials, how all this might work. And then we just did a 10-person pilot. And then once we had that 10-person pilot and an appetite for it, we said, how do we now scale this to a much larger operation within the enterprise? And that's where we started to have to work in Workday and the talent architecture team and competency models and understand how this could all add up into something that didn't require an individual effort of a small team, but could be seen as a playbook that the enterprise could access. And that's the process we're going through now as we continue to expand.
That's perfect. Thank you for describing that. And we're going to get to a point for the folks that are on the call here, the employers and so forth. You know, not everybody's the size of Walmart. So just know that eventually we're going to hear from some folks that are 2-person shops. You know, I use that phrase all the time, Brent, 2-person shop all the way to Walmart and everywhere in between. Right. And then part of that includes, you know, what happens within state agencies and state government. And so, Jonathan, I'm going to take this question now to you and say, you know, you alluded to why you thought it was important, but there's been some things you've had to do behind the scenes at state government to get prepared for this. So tell us about that.
Well, so I think first, we have to have a paradigm shift in how we're doing things at the state. Because when I first took this job, a lot of my colleagues said, well, you know, you're not going to be able to hire the best and brightest over there. Why are you doing that? I refuse to believe that. I mean, I just refuse to believe that. So we have to just look at things differently. Thankfully, we've got some folks like, you know, Cody that we've worked with to try to create some programs for us. And one of the things that excited me was the apprentice area, because, you know, from a standpoint of creating state positions, that calls for legislative oversight. I can't just go out and magically create a position and hire that person. There's a number of steps that I have to take to be able to hire that, and then it has to be in the right pay scale, et cetera. I needed to move faster than that. And so the apprentice program allowed us to do that by designating some of our positions that we already had slots for, but designate those as an apprentice. And it allows us to then take the minimum requirements that are sometimes associated with those jobs and change those. So we were finding that we were looking for cybersecurity experts or database administrators, and it was clear they had the aptitude and they knew how to do this, yet they didn't have 5 years of cybersecurity experience with, you know, X, Y, and Z. They didn't have that, what I would call a certification, but I could tell that they had the aptitude, they had the desire, and the things that we could then bring them on and grow. So we just had to make a few changes in terms of our structure. Now we're interviewing for a cybersecurity specialist. We're also interviewing for a DBA, database administrator apprentice. So we're excited. I think we're going to finally get those folks hired this month. It took a little bit of time. We had to work through the process. Sometimes I felt like it was molasses on a cold January morning, but we finally got there. And now we're to the point where I think we, being DIS, can be an example that other departments around the state look at and say, okay, so that's how it's done. And then hopefully that permeates around the state more and more. But it gave us just the perfect opportunity to hire the person that you know is qualified, you know they have the skills, you know they have the aptitude, you just have to get them in the door. So we're excited about that chance.
Thank you for describing that, because, you know, that really is, whether it's the first two examples for everybody on the call of Walmart as big company or a state agency, you know, again, thinking about where you are as an employer, we want you to know that I think each would agree that ACDS has helped shepherd you through that entire process, right? And that's the real goal here, is that we don't expect you as an employer to have to figure this out on your own, right? That this is all on your shoulders to figure out how to implement. And Jim, are you now on the phone?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jim. Here's what I'd like you to do now that you're here. Tell us about yourself and your company, Arvest, and a little bit of reason why you're on the call. And then take that first question in stride, which is really, you know, what did you go through as as a company with your leadership to make a decision on registered apprenticeship?
Yeah, so Jim Cole, Arvest Bank, we are a four-state bank holding company in Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. We have about 6,500 associates working for us. And from an acceptance or how we got into the program, gosh, we have great family ownership with Arvest. So we enjoy a lot of support, especially when it comes to the state of Arkansas. So for those of you who don't know, we're owned by the Walton family. And so I first got introduced to the apprenticeship program at a Northwest Arkansas Council meeting. It was one of those, hey, would you be interested in looking at an apprentice program for technology? And the answer was very easy because I come from a family of journeymen. My dad was a journeyman, tool and die maker. My brother's machine repairs journeyman. So it was something that's really familiar. It's like, no, I know what an apprentice is. And yeah, we're very interested in that. And ran it by Mr. Walton. He said, yeah, go for it. And so very easy adoption. And then everything that's been said by the other panelists as well as presenters as far as why this is working for interesting. So we just got a different message up on Zoom. So anyhow, we were able to adopt the program. We started with a couple non-information security avenues and then adopted it into information security.
Very good, Jim. I'm glad we can actually see you now too on the screen and hear you at the same time. So that's great. And you mentioned that, yeah, you've done an RPA developer program a couple different times now. One's ongoing right now as an apprenticeship cohort. And the other was obviously Sajan, who is your CISO, has been very instrumental. I think he's probably on the call here. He's been a very key component of advancing cybersecurity apprenticeship. So you might mention that as well.
Yeah. So Sajan, I hope you're on the line because you deserve tons of credit for this, not only in adopting the apprenticeship program, but really working on the curriculum for it, creating space within his team to work with the apprentices and to move this along in a wonderful manner. So our CISO is Sajan Gautam. He's been with us, joined us from Citibank, probably 4 years ago now. So has been very instrumental in this. And part of our need for the apprenticeship program is for a mid-sized bank, we're taking a very different approach to information security. Sajan brought a concept around fusion centers. And that was not something that we could recruit for from other mid-sized banks because it's just not something they've done. If you go to larger institutions like MasterCard, again, Citi, Chase, and so forth, they have fusion centers where they bring together a lot of different disciplines around information security into that particular group. What we've been able to do with this apprenticeship program is introduce people at a very early stage into the concept of fusion and actually train them up through that analyst up through engineering and so forth into the fusion center. So it's been a really good funnel for us for a recruiting and employment perspective.
Jim, that's great. You've actually led me right to the next question here, which I want to get everybody's perspective on. And that is, we refer to the fact that this is a skill building opportunity, that somebody comes in, either an internal candidate who doesn't have all the skills or an external hire, and they don't check every box, but they have great aptitude. They've got some background. That's what we help with at ACDS. But let's talk a little bit about, and I'm going to turn this back to Brent first. Brent, talk about how critical the curriculum, Jim just mentioned, that curriculum was key. Talk about that as to how that's become part of this apprenticeship model that you can ensure that who's going to become productive quickly in your organization because they're learning exactly what they need. So Brent, talk about that a little bit, and then I'll ask Jim and Jonathan to comment as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Lonnie. And for us, it's actually part of a larger process. And I think it's important in the context of this all has to start with our business needs and our business demand. And so when we look at an area like cybersecurity or software engineering or frontline associates or whatever the role is, we need to understand what, location, size, quantity, timing, levels, and so on. And when we understand that, we then go and find out the group that we're sourcing from, which element of the non-traditional population, and which partner we can work with to do that. And in this case, it was ACDS has been a fantastic partner, which I think we'll talk about shortly in some broader areas. The key part about having the right partner is what the ability to take what our demand signal and what the business segments have told us with regards to what they need to see their apprentices know in terms of their knowledge, their competencies, and weave that and be able to customize it to a degree and tailor the curriculum content to be something that the hiring managers are looking for, that the business segment wants. And that has been a huge success in this. It is so much more effective and beneficial to the company than an off-the-shelf curriculum, for example, because now we can give the business segments, the business leaders, the hiring managers, agency over that content, and they can take somebody that may have a foundation or a background or not, depending on the level, and infuse in them exactly what they need them to be able to do at work. And that's been a huge part of it. And so having that curriculum partner, not just who can deliver the means of instruction that we're looking for, but the content itself and customize that content down to the cohort level has been fantastic.
And getting it paid for ain't a bad deal either, right?
Cody is a superhero with the Avenger cape, and so is the rest of the state on this one. And it's been fantastic. So and the ability to put all that together has been huge for the enterprise.
Yeah. You use this term one time, and I've copied it many times, is that the one thing about an apprenticeship is it allows to match context. What is somebody's role and responsibility, and the training becomes something that they can apply it immediately, right? So they're not just learning for learning's sake. They're learning and applying. And so, Jonathan, you see that, right? That's some of the skills for information security that you were talking about.
Certainly, and Brent, just to let you know, we make Cody check his cape at the door when he comes in our offices. So, but I will say that, very few state agencies, the harsh reality is in state government, very few agencies have the ability to have someone trained. I know in the private sector, sometimes you bring someone on and it's 3 or 4 months, they go through training and then you finally introduce them to actual production or operations. We don't have that luxury in the state. It's just a harsh reality. So what we have to do is carefully tailor that training to the job they are actually performing. So like, for instance, the cybersecurity, we have some specific roles that we want for our cybersecurity person. And that training will be tailored around that. The DBA is going to be actually working on a project. And so the training will have very specific sets of deliverables or measurements around those projects. That is the reality of state government. Thankfully, Lonnie and Bill and ACDS were able to say, yeah, we can tailor the training. It's not one size fits all. And I think that's sometimes the part of what we run into is everyone feels like it is one size fits all, and it's not. And so as we move forward with this, we look, we realize that we're learning a lot as we go in doing this. I think we're one of the first state agencies to actually have apprentices on board, which I'm proud of. But we know that we're going to learn a few things and probably make a few mistakes, but that's okay. We're doing the right thing and moving in the right direction.
We're walking that path together. Jim, yeah. He mentioned the training partners and some things internal. You've had the RPA where we've been able to work with a group called Expansion, on the UiPath training and all that. And then Sajan working with Forge and being able to identify the boot camp. Just a few words from you on those, and then I'm going to ask a special guest to say a few words as one of our training partners. So. Uh-oh. Now we're not hearing you again.
Okay, we're back to the phone. So hopefully you can hear that.
We can.
Okay, all right. Well, sometimes it's adapt and overcome.
That's right.
And so on the training side, I agree with everything that's been said. Here's the other aspect, and that is that when we talk about cybersecurity training, we've got a training department within the bank. But this is such an incredibly specialized skill that we can't rely on our training department to do it. So historically, what we did was we relied on OJT. And OJT basically says, I take my best person and I hamper them for some period of time because now they're training a newbie into the organization. So what we've been able to do with the apprenticeship program is to develop that cohort. The cohort extends into Sachin's organization. So we're actually engaged in tweaking that training and having a vested interest in how we're making it better through that process. And so it's really just this great cooperative effort between our staff and the apprentices. And so that, again, the cohort extends beyond just those that are in the training mode, in the apprenticeship mode, to also those giving input into how do we make training better. So it's just been a wonderful experience for us.
Great, Jim. So Scott, I think you're still here with us, right? I want you to say a few words about our relationship between ACDS and Forge Institute, who is one of our premier training partners, not only for the Registered Apprenticeship RTI training, but they're also very effective in building what we call pre-apprentice programs. And Mark didn't mention earlier about certified pre-apprentice, but it's really the equipping of individuals before they ever become hired and apprentices. So Scott, do you want to take a second or two and just mention kind of Forge's role in that as for cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely, Lonnie. I appreciate it. Within the Forge Academy, we have different boot camps that we offer. What we talk about is our secret sauce in regards to what other people have mentioned in regards to the gap analysis of what the employers need versus what skills, abilities, and knowledge that the individuals have. It's different for every organization. So how do you identify that? And then how do you grow that capability? With our pre-apprentice kind of boot camp is what we call it, which is our IT and cyber fundamentals. From a cyber standpoint, I think every IT person needs to think more effectively about cybersecurity because they're the ones that are implementing it day to day. And if you can build that foundational knowledge into networking, operating systems, programming, then you're better off. So I love the pre-apprenticeship part. But then when you look at the number of contact hours, I would say that there are IT roles that definitely fall in the bucket of a work role within cybersecurity. So it's really figuring out the needs of those organizations. And then how do you build a course like we have with our boot camps, both our cyber training boot camp, which is a more IT professional to a cybersecurity analyst that we've done as an apprenticeship program with ACDS and some organizations around the state and a couple that are on here. It's really looking at how we deliver the course, doing that gap analysis, doing cumulative assessments. So in the military, I mentioned earlier, we looked at qualifying and evaluating cybersecurity folks as cyber operators within the military. Like you would think of an operator of an airplane. We do check rides, we do evaluations, and we would write criteria on what that looked like. I think that's where we're heading. I think when you look at certifications and training, that leads to an evaluation on whether someone can do the job, especially in an operational environment like what Arvis is doing with their fusion center. So I think mirroring that up and figuring out what the needs are of employers and then identifying those gaps and then feeding that into traditional education all the way down to, K-12 and then moving that into, it's all part of the ecosystem. And there's multiple pathways, like you mentioned earlier, Lonnie. And I think we're just part of that ecosystem.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. I'm moving quickly, but I would be remiss if I didn't build off something that's been brought up, by several, including me. And that is, this isn't just for large companies, right? What about that small shop that's getting started? And I thought about cyber and who's already been one of our employer partners. And I couldn't help but think about a company called BreachBits. and Foster Davis and what they've done. And it's going to give him an example to give a testimony about what he has been able to do as a small company with apprenticeship. And one of his apprentices is going to join us as well. She came through our talent management, Reskill Arkansas program through ACDS. And so it's going to be interesting, I think, for all of you to hear this story. So Foster, are you still with us?
Absolutely, Lonnie. Want to make sure I'm coming through there. Can I get a thumbs up that I'm coming through all right? Yeah. I mean, we're where the rubber meets the road, Lonnie. As a venture-backed, early-stage startup, we are crossing the chasm. For those that know what I'm talking about, we are bringing to market the world's most reliable cyber risk score that's based on the hackers methodology and artificial intelligence. And so to give you an idea of that footprint Lonnie's talking about, I've got a team of about 15. Half of them are contractors. The other is split between mostly full-times. And you're going to get to meet Sarah here in a moment. But to set you up for the context on my end as somebody where that rubber's meeting the road, what's the experience been like for me? Well, we are headquartered in Washington, D.C., but we have a main office here in Little Rock. We have a heavily remote, but more, I would say more a hybrid workforce. And so we're very much a little bit perhaps nuanced in that way, but I think a lot of the viewers today might be able to identify with that. And so coming from that context, what we see in Arkansas is absolutely, I think, what the governor mentioned and what the messages I heard earlier. Arkansas is an up and coming center of excellence for computer and cyber sciences. And that's one reason we have a footprint here. And that's one reason I was quickly attracted to the programs that have been talking about today, and especially our work together, Lonnie. And for me, it's about sort of 4 points. What did it do for me? Well, number one, it gave me access to talent that had already been vetted. A whole person type vetting is what I'm talking about. It allowed me to find that faster. In my environment, every single hire I bring on is a critical influence on my company. And so this program allowed me to have a reduced risk for that time period, allowing me to hire for attitude, training for skills, in an environment where the entire premise was this is a learning environment, and let's see how we can make this work. And so we are excited to get ready to hire more through this program. It's so easy on my side. It's so easy. I did it, right? I was the main guy, Lonnie, as just for my company, because you all made it so easy. But so that's just a bit from my perspective. I see a lot of the names here on the attendee list, whether they're up in the DC region or in Little Rock. Many of you know me. Give me a call after this if you want to talk about it. I will tell you everything we went through, but the response on our end as the employer, overwhelmingly positive. And so I am proud to introduce our first apprentice that we hired through this. I'd like to introduce Sarah Polton, who came to us. She's going to tell you her story, but we're proud of her. We're already ready to duplicate her. Ladies and gentlemen, the very adept, the very tenacious Sarah Polton. Sarah, are you on?
Thanks so much for that introduction, Foster. Really appreciate it. I'm also happy to represent the other side of this conversation in going through the process. So I was I'm going to try to keep this brief, even though it's such a long story. Pandemic-induced career changer. I have a lot of work background in a diverse set of skills, from customer service to small business management to event management, and a little bit of education in there too, just for fun. And what ACDS was able to provide me with was a situation in which the diverse background wasn't a hindrance, where I wasn't being hired in spite of it, but because of it, because it allowed me to bring my full self to the position and my diverse set of skills while growing my technical skills as a software developer. And it's been a really amazing experience. And just to add a human moment to it, like, it's completely changed my life, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity.
Sarah and Foster, that's just fantastic. And I know you have already spoken in other videos and things on our behalf and for you. So I think the next step that I'd like to do on the panel here is ask a final closing question because I know we want to entertain some of these questions that we've gotten from our audience. So the final question that I have for you guys is, in summary, were there any things that you learned about the process, whether that be the way we brought you talent? I don't think we've talked about the supply side maybe enough, but Sarah, you brought that to bear. So I'm going to leave this as an open-ended question. And maybe, Jim, you've utilized a lot of internal candidates, so I don't want to miss the opportunity for employers to remember that they can use this for incumbents to advance and replace as kind of a succession management plan, as well as a way to find a new candidate, a diverse candidate like Sarah at BreachBits. Do any of you want to kind of speak to your relationship with ACDS and how that supplemental kind of diverse staffing strategy has helped you?
I'm
Brent?
happy to,
Yeah.
I'm happy to jump in. I think for us, the probably 3 or 4 main real points of value for us were the recruiting is expensive and recruiting is a long process, and we all are constrained on the quantity of recruit. Like just throwing more recruiters at the problem doesn't work, but doing it smarter and doing it through you has taken a burden off of us. So we've been able to boil down recruiting costs are 5% of what they are if we're recruiting in a way other than apprenticeships. I mean, there's a real business value there as number one. Number two, and you're able to take what we give you in terms of what we're looking for, and then you can source the individuals that way. It was just amazing. The second is this concept of depending on where we source from and how individuals come into the program, you help us take care of either the skilling, reskilling, or upskilling of those individuals to be able to do the roles. And then I'll finish as the third or third and fourth point is that the management of it and being the intermediary between us, the training provider, and us and the state agencies, and helping to provide that full service. There was a chart at the beginning when you gave your overview, and I thought it was almost textbook exactly how it worked out with us. And even as a large company, we really appreciated that and needed that. And those 3 or 4 main areas have been phenomenal.
Thank you, Brent. Jonathan, you kind of just scratching the surface on some of this, but you've heard us refer to it. So is it nice for you to know that we're going to handle all that paperwork and shepherd you through the process?
Oh, absolutely. That's really nice to know. But I think the thing that I got really from working with you is that you wouldn't let us accept the status quo. And I appreciate that. I mean, you just said, no, status quo is not good enough. And what do we need to change? Who do we need to go talk to? And I knew if I didn't move fast enough, I was going to get a call from Yoder every 2 weeks. It was like, oh, crap, Yoder's about to call. I need to get something moving. So, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that, you knew that this was the right thing to do, and you would not accept status quo as an answer. And, you were a great partner in that extent.
Well, we appreciate that. And as you know, that partnership extends to all those other entities that have been on this call, between OSD and ADWS and the workforce boards and the Office of Apprenticeship with the Department of Labor. It really has been a hand in glove kind of exercise, and that's been beneficial. Jim, any other final comments before we take questions from the audience?
Yeah, I would say that, sometimes you begin a program and hope that it does what it's billed as. Our experience is that it exceeded our expectation. And so this has been such a benefit for us. You mentioned that we use it for internal upskilling. We still partner with your recruiter to look at our internal candidates for goodness of fit. And so there's been a real benefit there. So we're a hybrid. We take external candidates as well as run our own internal candidates through it. Running internal through there is such a statement for those folks within ARVESS to say, I have a skill that I think I want to take to the next level. And so by opening up the apprenticeship program to them as well, we've been able to, first of all, get some great talent from some unusual places, whether it's the teller line or from our help desk. But the other is that it just reinforces that ARVESS is an employer of choice. And so by joining ARVESS, the roads of opportunity are varied, and we find a lot of different paths to get our associates into their ultimate role. But I would tell you guys that this is a great program. You know, we look back again, have been participating for several years with different cohorts, and every one of them has been a benefit to us.
Very good. Thank you, Jim. So Mark, I'm going to turn to you now. I know you've got some people there that have been collecting potential questions. Do you want to offer them via verbally, or I've got one here that I can start with, but I'm asking you, do you have some of the questions?
Yeah, we do, Lonnie. And, you know, one that I might start off with, just because maybe I could get Marion to address if she's still on the line. You know, it was around sort of the national cybersecurity sprint effort and kind of how it may filter down to other states, or if it's available in other states, and it is. But Marion, would you like to kind of address that?
Absolutely. So it is a national program, and the way it works is whether you're an employer, an intermediary, or you're a job seeker, if you go to the Sprint website, there are clickable boxes where you can fill out a form, and somebody will get in touch with you to help answer your questions and put you in touch with somebody that can help you either get a program started or put you in touch with somebody who's running a program near you. And as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, there is a map that is shown on the website. So if you're a job seeker and looking for a program near you, as the individual who posted a question looking for a program in New Jersey, there are programs already up there. So you can go and search on by state, and it is a map, so you can see if there's one near where you live.
Thank you so much, Marion. Appreciate that response.
Mark, I've got a question on that just popped in here. Do you want me?
Go ahead.
I'll read it out loud, and I think I can address it right away. This is from Catherine Stoddard at ASU Mid-South. Not all businesses have the infrastructure for providing all the training, or individuals may be remote or even out of state, but the employer can perform the OJT portion. Is there part of the program that matches employers with outside training entities? Let me stop there and say, yes, that's what our training solutions director does. It matches the registered apprenticeship standard. We have something called work process and Appendix A. All that means is that there's some standards, and we line that up and have the best of breed training partners that could come in a number of fashions. It could be online, it could be face-to-face, instructor led. We've got all kinds of options depending on what that occupation is. So the answer to that is yes, that's what we do, is match you with the right training entity. As an educational community college, how can we get involved and work with this program to match or update training that meets those standards? And I know that we're already kind of started in our relationship with you at ASU Mid-South in a couple different ways, working with Latrobe Logistics, and then also working on maybe a couple candidates that you might have in your internal IT. But in terms of the community college having training programs, this is a very good question to ask, because there's many of you in education, I think, that are on this call, that if you have cybersecurity related education, depending on the location, the delivery, whether it's remote or they have to get credit or not for credit, all of those things are viable. And that's part of our kind of that baking of the cake that falls in the middle of this apprenticeship when we talk about content and delivery. So we would love to work with you at ASU Mid-South, much like we've worked with ASU Newport. We work with Pulaski Tech, North Ark College, NWAC. We could go down the list of other community colleges that we've already, CARC in Pine Bluff. So there's a long-standing relationship with working with community colleges, and we'd love to do that with you. Thanks for the question.
So Lonnie, we're kind of bumping up against our time here. Maybe if there's one more we could address, but I want everyone to know that we're going to follow up with these questions. We have them captured with you individually, and certainly if you have more, feel free to reach out to us. We're glad to respond to any and all questions, and want to do that. So
can you pop up that last slide?
No, but I will.
Yes, we'll get that up.
So for everybody that stayed through this, and I noticed the number has gone from 130 plus to we've lost a few along the way. Next slide. We want to leave you with a call to action. You heard Marion and Manny refer to the cyber sprint goals, And they're on the left here. You can see increasing that awareness of cyber registered apprenticeships, advancing, this DEIA. And that's been a big part of what we focused on here in Arkansas. It's almost a natural byproduct of 10,000 Arkansans in the applicant tracking system. But we're going to focus even more, educating the public on this accelerated model. That's what we've done today. We will continue to do that as a collaborative group to get the information out into the education community, the connection and recruiting. So here's our goals amongst this cyber sprint team in Arkansas. We think that as far as awareness, we're going to touch thousands of Arkansans through these events, one of which is today through social media, through high school programs, CTE focus, and a number of other things we're doing with the veterans communities and some of the very focused organizations on the underserved populations. As far as that advancement, we think that as far as DEI, the diversity and inclusion numbers, we've already seen about a 38% participation rate of those groups in our registered apprenticeships, and 428 of them. It's growing rapidly. So we expect during this cyber sprint to grow that to 50% of the population. We see ourselves doubling the education events through Forge, through community colleges, career centers, local workforce boards, ADWS, and then certainly OSD. And that's how we're going to educate the general public on this focused effort. It's like a campaign for us. The goal that really applies to you as employers is the last two. How do we take and get you connected to this system and to find candidates like you've heard many of the employers talk about today? This applicant tracking system, we're going to have career seekers. We hope to grow the candidate pool by another 25% in the fourth quarter. So that's kind of our goal during this sprint. And then the final piece is you. We're recruiting you as the employer to understand this, to move from today, which was awareness, to if you've asked every question or gotten all the information you needed and you're interested in saying, I'd like to learn more, your call to action today is to reach out to us at the Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, reach out to the Office of Skills Development, and tell us that you are ready to take that next step. And we will come and have a one-on-one session via Zoom, or we'll visit you, and we'll go through all the details that Arvest went through, Walmart went through, BreachBits, DIS, and every other one of those 100 plus companies. If you're a bank, talk to us. If you're a healthcare organization concerned about cyber, talk to us. If you're just this small company, not sure where to turn on apprenticeship, talk to us. And we want to get, instead of, we hope to talk to 100 companies, get 50 that are interested, and get 25 new commitments from you. That's kind of our campaign goal. So step up and help us reach that goal. Mark, I know we're out of time. Thank you very much. And I appreciate 100 plus organizations and people who have hopefully gotten a lot out of this hour-and-a-half session. Mark, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks to everyone joining us today. And just know that we have a collaborative partnership in the state of Arkansas, and we're here to support you and answer your questions and move you along the pathway of registered apprenticeship in the state. So thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll sign off.